Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, Searching for Snow Leopards, Part 1, The Ghost Appears, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Surya Ramachandran. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Take it away, Surya.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everyone. I'll come back at the end of the presentation for the Q&A. I'm going to turn off my video till then. Here we go. Okay, so today is going to be an interesting uh, talk, I would say, on a place I have been guiding for the last 8 years now in Ladakh. Both I started working there, helping with the communities there, and being a part of some small projects in whatever way I could before we set up a tourism operation, and now it's become a major thing in Ladakh. But the journey towards making snow leopards from myth to reality was a very long one, and I wanted to speak a little bit about that, the people involved, the processes, and a little bit about snow leopards uh, themselves. That is me, and this is what we do in Ladakh. Work with the community. The locals are at the helm. Those who've been there would have seen it. Those who are yet to come, you will experience something very special in the landscape of big cats in Ladakh. Something very unique and different from the rest of the world. So yes,
Surya,
yes,
your webcam is still on, just so you know.
yeah, I'm just not. Yeah, I'm here. Fine. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Better. Yes. Thanks. All right. So you've seen this beautiful cat walking through the mountainside in Ladakh. You see an image like this. You see a lot of images on the internet nowadays of great pictures of snow leopards walking through great mountain landscapes, icy river valleys, and steep rocky mountainsides. You see them sometimes in Ladakh, especially. We sometimes see them walking in the bottom of a gorge on the banks of the river Indus. Pictures like this. These are all my pictures, but working in wildlife in India, in Ladakh, I couldn't have imagined that I'll be clicking pictures like this with guests from NatHab on tour in Ladakh while looking for snow leopards. So the transformation has been incredible. Before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about where exactly in India we are going. So this is the map of India, as you can see, and the red dot on top, which almost looks very close to Central Asia than India, is Ladakh, and that is where we go for snow leopards. So if you look at the like a bird's eye view of India, in fact, you can see the great Himalayan barrier to the north with the mountains of northern India and Nepal. Ladakh actually is further to the north of that. It is actually a place where the northern Himalayas and the Karakorams and Tibet meet. It's a very interesting thing that Ladakh is a part of India because if you look at it geologically, it makes sense for it to be a part of, let's say, Tibet or further north. But I'm glad it's a part of India. So to reach this place, we fly over the Himalayas from Delhi. It's quite a spectacular flight. So we cross, start from Delhi. It's a 1 hour flight. Climb up over the mountains. We fly over the mountains, and then we descend into the Indus River Valley. And interestingly, we come to a very plush, beautiful hotel in the heart of the Indus Valley called the Grand Dragon. So this is where our trip starts. So as much as people may imagine that you are going to a remote location in the mountains looking for a very hard to see cat in like very harsh conditions, but the welcome is still nice. It's a beautiful flight and a beautiful hotel, and we land in this incredible landscape called Ladakh. So unlike the mountains of the Himalayas or any other mountains in the world, Ladakh is unique in that it is in the rain shadow that is to the north of the highest mountain range in the world. So it is essentially a cold desert. Snowfall is not necessarily the norm here. It is more, snowfall does occur, but it occurs a lot more in the south, in the Himalayas. But in Ladakh, it is more cold in dry conditions, like rocks and lichens and dry weather. It's a very low precipitation area, and that is how the Indus River Valley looks. You can see the Indus River flowing in the center, with the Indian landmass to the south and the Asian landmass to the north. For those of you who aren't familiar, the interesting thing is this landscape of mountain folk, Buddhism, and great cultural sites, great landscapes, great spirituality was actually born very recently. It is, in terms of geological time period, is very recent. It's only about 35, the last ice ages, which is 35,000 years ago. That is when the Asian landmass and the Indian landmass collided to give birth to these mountains. And because of these mountains that came in and the river valleys that flowed in, people and wildlife migrated into this new region, into this new land that just appeared from below the sea, and have colonized it over the last few thousand years. And that is what we know as Ladakh today. And one of the creatures, one of the probably the most fascinating creatures that moved into this landscape is the snow leopard. You can see in this picture it is built perfectly for this mountain terrain. Short legs, thick fur, small ears, and a long bushy tail, all helping it to stay warm, stay agile, stay nimble in steep slopes, and also hold its balance while traveling at high speeds down the mountainside. It is the perfect cat for a 4,000-meter elevation mountain hardy terrain. So I'm going to go back to the maps now. In this, you can see that this is the map of northern India. The white line, the white crescent that you see going from right bottom to the left top is the Great Himalayan Range of mountains. Unlike what most people believe, the Himalayas aren't all of Central Asia, but the Great Himalayan Range is just one mountain range with all the high peaks. If you notice to the south of it, it's all lush green in India because that is the big barrier to the rain cloud. So all the rain falls to the south. And as you can see to the north of it is all brown desert. And that is Ladakh, Tibet, the Karakorams. All of these areas come to the north of the Himalayas. So in fact, that's why it's called the third pole, because it is able to modify global weather as much as the north and the south pole. This is how the landscape is. It is still pushing against each other. When the Indian landmass hit the Asian landmass 35,000 years ago, uh, they started pushing each other up. The Tethys Sea, which was there, has disappeared since, and these rocks from below the ocean have started being pushed up, and they're still being pushed up against each other along the suture zone, which is the Indus Valley. And interestingly, when you come to Ladakh, you can actually see geology in action live, because it's not buried under layers and layers of trees, bushes, and mud, whereas all the rocks here are exposed to the elements and to the naked eye for all of us to observe and appreciate and truly understand what the geological processes are happening here. This is the main city of Leh in Ladakh, the capital city which we land into, and where our first hotel where we acclimatize to the altitude is. It is a big city, the city of Leh, and this is an abnormality in this region. So Ladakh is a region with less than 2 people per square kilometer. Unlike what all of you would have heard of India, Ladakh is quite the opposite. It has a lower population density than New Zealand. It is essentially one big, huge wildlife sanctuary in the mountains of the Trans Himalaya. So it is around 60,000 square kilometers, and almost all of it is wilderness. Most of Ladakh is essentially small villages set on mountain sides with a monastery, which is their place of worship where the monks reside and carry out their rituals. That is how Ladakh is mostly. And these people grow crops in the summer, whereas the rest of the year they're dependent on their livestock. So they graze the livestock on the mountain sides and come back to the villages. And some of the communities also are nomadic, where they keep roaming with their livestock in search of the best pasture lands. So this is essentially how most of Ladakh is. Leh is of course a big city, but Leh is a big city because of globalization and rural to urban movement of people. But essentially, almost 95% of Ladakh is small villages set amongst beautiful mountain landscapes. This is how Ladakh looks mostly. 95% of Ladakh looks like this. And the first thing that comes to mind is that this landscape looks lifeless. Why would anyone come to a place like this to look for wildlife? I mean, that is true. In fact, if you come to Ladakh without any guidance, without any expert to show you the wildlife, or without anyone to actually tell you how to go about things in this strange Martian landscape, you will probably roam around for months without seeing anything. That's how interesting the place is, because the wildlife here is very, very well adapted to hiding. Though there are no trees, though there are no bushes, very few bushes, I should say, the wildlife has camouflaged very well using the scale of the mountains and, of course, the colors. So, like you can see, the burrel sheep here are right in the open. But if you're, let's say, driving past or walking past, it might be very, very easy to miss them. And like the burrel sheep, the top predator has also adapted very well to these conditions. I'm not sure how many of you can actually see the snow leopard here. It is to the right side of the frame on top of the boulder, looking down at the valley. That's how brilliantly they camouflage in these mountain conditions. Talking about snow leopards, they're found across 11 countries in Central Asia, India being one of them, of course, which is why NATAB comes to India to look for snow leopards in Ladakh. But apart from India, you also have snow leopards in Nepal, parts of Bhutan, China. You have them in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and one or two more other Central Asian countries. But interestingly, of this entire area, only 2% of the global range of snow leopards has actually been truly studied. And most of the studies have happened in Nepal and India, and interestingly, parts of China and Afghanistan as well. But because of their range is so huge, and because it is all cross border, conflicted border areas, and also because of the hostile terrain, it has not been very easy to study snow leopards in these mountain landscapes. But there was one area where there is a lot of focused studies that happened, and that is the national park in Ladakh called Hemis National Park. So Hemis National Park is just about 25 minutes from the airport where we land, and this is the largest national park in India. Though, like I told you, Ladakh is essentially one big national park. This is the actual government recognized protected area within Ladakh. And in this area was this is the place where Dr. Rinjan Wangchuk, as you can see, the person to the right, from the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust, started his first studies of snow leopards. And his purpose was not just to study snow leopards, but to help the communities that live with the snow leopards in their backyards. He wanted to set up like a community conservation model of these big cats, and this was the first big initiative in Ladakh in the 90s. So this is the kind of village which where the people live with snow leopards. There's yak, there's sheep. There are small kraals which have been set up just to protect the livestock from the fast blowing winds. But there is no wood in Ladakh, so there is no way to cover the livestock shelters. So very often, what used to happen in those days, and even occasionally, even now, is that snow leopards get in. I'm sorry about the graphic image. Snow leopards do get in, and sometimes in the frenzy they end up killing over 40-50 sheep occasionally at night. That is the entire uh, livelihood of one farmer or maybe even one village is evaporates overnight because the snow leopard gets in. So there was a lot of tension. There is still a lot of tension between the simple subsistence lifestyle of the mountain folk and how everything can go topsy turvy with the snow leopard entering their village. So this is the background to which Dr. Rinchen Wangchuk and the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust came to this region of the national park, an area called Rumbak, to try and understand what exactly is happening. Why is there conflict? What are the people going through? But to do that, they have to actually try to find snow leopards or understand snow leopards. How many snow leopards are there? Where are they moving? Why are they coming into the villages? Where else are they moving? Where do they move in the mountains? In fact, imagine starting from the not even from zero, starting from -10. That's what they were facing, and they were facing an uphill task, as most tasks are in Ladakh. But they persisted, and a lot of beautiful things happened, which I'll tell you about now. So, firstly, they started camera trapping to understand the number of cats, the population dynamics of the cats, how many females, how many males, how many cubs, where do they roam, where do they mark their territory. They started analyzing scat to see what they were eating, where do they move between the seasons, where are they in the winters, where are they in the summers, which are the ones which are coming close to the villages, why are they coming close to the villages. All of these secrets were revealed by camera trap images of wild snow leopards set up by the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust in the national park. Look at that, such a beautiful image. Two cubs, and that's how they mark their territory. Apart from spraying, they also rub their cheeks because they have glands in their cheeks which help them spread their scent. Apart from setting up camera traps, what the Snow Leopard Conservancy Trust did was they started involving the locals in the research. They were not restricting the research work just to the scientists and the researchers and people from the organization. They recognized the importance of local knowledge. People, shepherds who've been walking the mountains along with snow leopards. So they started involving them in the studies, and they slowly understood that these people actually know so much, and their eyesight in these mountains is uncomparable. So they taught them on how to use binoculars and scopes to find snow leopards, how to track them, and how to better understand these cats and not just look at them as a threat to their livestock and livelihood. So the Himalayan homestays program was set up by the Snow Leopard Conservancy Trust, where they converted a few of the homes in the national park to start with into places where people could come and stay and explore the mountains with the locals with the purpose of seeing snow leopards. And this in 1990s and early 2000s was something unheard of at that point. People still imagined going into the mountains, hiking for months, and praying that a snow leopard just magically pops up. But now you can go and stay in some local's house where you have a beautiful hot kitchen where local meals are cooked, and the people in the village take you out, and you have a realistic chance of finding snow leopards. So this program really kicked off, and people from all over the world came and successfully saw snow leopards in Ladakh, photographed them, and some of the best initial images of snow leopards came from the mountains of Hemis National Park. But remember, this is winter in Ladakh. It can go down to -15, -20 degrees. It is a remote place. The locals are hardy and used to it. People from outside may not be. Sometimes, when there are too many people, the tourists had to set up tents and sleep in sleeping bags with their camera batteries in their pockets to stay warm. So all of these things were happening, but still there was a good amount of snow leopard sightings happening. So people were happy. But then slowly, the Snow Leopard Conservancy Trust also started moving to areas outside the national park and setting up homestays in other areas outside the national park where snow leopards were frequently seen, and they were good spotters or good trackers who could be trained. So the homestays program was not just restricted to the national parks, but it started expanding into landscapes outside the national park wherever there were snow leopards. So suddenly you had homestays in community areas, in village areas, in revenue lands of the mountains where there is no recognized national park. And these areas also became fantastic places to see snow leopards. So now imagine a thing that started in 2000. By 2010, there were almost 8 to 10 villages or village complexes which were great places to see snow leopards. So overall, Ladakh became a fantastic place with multiple options for people to go stay in without the crowds and experience the chance of seeing a wild snow leopard. And spotters were fantastic in all these places. It's actually, I don't know how to uh, put it in words what I've seen these people do. I've seen them pick out a swish of a snow leopard tail behind a rock almost a kilometer away in the mountains in the midday haze of the sun. How they did it, I don't know. I've seen them pull off some incredible sights. There is definitely something to do with their eyesight, their ability to read the scale of the mountains, their ability to understand the size of the subject they're looking for. All of these may sound like alien concepts when I'm talking on this webinar now, but when you actually come to Ladakh and see them in action, you'll understand how difficult the task actually is. But they do pull it off for all our groups. And imagine this, till now we've been running snow leopard groups for the last 4 years with NatHab, and we have seen snow leopards in all of our trips. And that's entirely down to these incredible trackers who we work with in Ladakh. Another big advancement that came after 2010 in Ladakh, which helped this cause further, was that the Ladakh started connecting even the most remote villages by roads. So now you had access to some incredible valleys, which earlier one had to hike for multiple days to reach. Now you could just drive into these places to explore, and the people in these places are also more familiarized with the concept of snow leopard tourism. So Ladakh, as such, became a region which was in tune or in sync together with the idea of community conservation of big cats and the benefits of ecotourism, if I may use the word. But today, when we go to Ladakh, let's say 25 years since the start of the first snow leopard tours, now we have lodges, very, very good lodges with fantastic setups right in the heart of snow leopard country. Great rooms, great facilities. This is the Natab Snow Leopard Lodge that we use in Ladakh. Heated rooms. You have running water even in the winters, hot and cold. You have fantastic dining areas. You have a functional bar. And interestingly, all of this still works in sync with the community conservation concept, because the community has gotten together and set up these lodges, and they run it, and the trackers are still from the village where the lodges are located. So this lodge in the village of Rumbak in the heart of Hemis National Park, where we stay, is also the place where snow leopard tourism started, and the people who were there at the start of the program are still around and are still assisting people like us when we come to look for snow leopards in the mountains. Look at that, how beautiful is that? This is the lodge where we'll be going to stay and to look for snow leopards. Imagine this. I have done everything from the camping to the homestays to sleeping in a cave to everything. And then now we have options like this. So I'm glad, I'm happy for all of you. But I'm glad I went through the process also of suffering through the mountains, because I don't know, I just didn't have an option then. I shouldn't say that. I prefer this. This does look gorgeous. And imagine that in the middle of all that, this is the view from the lodge, and you have a really genuine chance. And this has happened before, where people have seen snow leopards right from the grounds of the lodge. So you just step out because of the panoramic views. Occasionally, you do have snow leopards walking past, and these are some of our guests who have just stepped out. We've woken them up and asked them to come out, and there's a snow leopard there, and they're photographing it. So imagine this, from the time when you had to like hike for days, sleep in tents or someone's homestay, to now you just fly into Leh, acclimatize in a really good hotel, meet with some fantastic well-trained guides, transfer to the lodge, which is about an hour away, and at the lodge you have a genuine chance of seeing snow leopards while you are still staying in the comfort of a very, very good quality, environmentally conscious wildlife lodge. So this is the transformation that snow leopard tourism has gone to in Ladakh, and this is also one of the reasons why Ladakh is one of the best places in the world to see snow leopards, if not the best place in the world to see snow leopards. Some of the other wildlife that you can see on these tours. So we've spoken a lot about snow leopards, but I have to mention the reasons why snow leopards are there in such good numbers in these mountains is, of course, prey. And one of them is the Himalayan ibex or the Asiatic ibex, the mountain goats that roam these mountains. And then we have the red sheep or the Urial, which is a tall, long-legged sheep that is native to the Indus Valley and the Shyok River valleys only. And then you, of course, have the most numerous ungulate of Ladakh, which is the Burrell, which is also locally called the blue sheep. You'll see them in great numbers in snow leopard country, and this is usually the main prey of snow leopards when they have a choice between this and the others. You also go to the other end of the size spectrum. We have pikas, or this is the large-eared pika, which is like a small mouse hare, which is seen through the winters roaming between the cracks and crevices of boulders looking for food. It's a very, very interesting animal. I always like to look for them because when you go look for them, you just have to sit quietly on a rock and they themselves pop out. If you try to force the issue, they go into the rocks and you don't see them ever again. Another creature which is not so easy to see because it's nocturnal, but you do occasionally see them, is the woolly hare, which it's with its black ears and white fluffy cotton tail. This one is also seen in the mountains around the lodge where we'll be staying. Of course, the Himalayan fox, very similar to the fox that you will get back home. But remember, the red fox has over 50 subspecies across the world. And this one, there is a color difference. It's a little bit more gray and has a lot more white than the foxes you get in the US. Even I've seen the foxes in North America, whereas these have a lot more white, and they have a lot more white on the tail and the back. And this is the Himalayan fox, which is a subspecies. Of course, we all talk about snow leopards, but we forget a very, very cool carnivore that is also seen in good numbers in Ladakh, which is the Tibetan wolf. In fact, the wolf requires its own conservation program because of how much livestock is still being taken by the wolves. For some reason, everyone's happy to save snow leopards, but they still have apprehensions about saving the wolf amongst the local communities. That is slowly changing, but for now, the wolf lives in the shadow of the snow leopard. And in fact, I get as excited to see a Tibetan wolf as I am to while seeing wild snow leopards. But interestingly, from this year onwards, on the NATAB tour, because of where we are going, we also have a genuine chance to see another cat, another wild cat, which we couldn't have seen on our previous trips, and that is the Eurasian lynx. The Rumbak area of Hemis National Park has a small population of Eurasian lynxes, which people do see on and off. In fact, on the tours, I would encourage people, after, if you see a snow leopard early, to try and focus on finding one of these beautiful cats. They hunt the woolly hare, that is their main prey, and they're just gorgeous animals to see. Of course, some of you may have seen bobcats or the Canada lynx in the US or in Alaska. These are similar, but it is the most wide-ranging lynx in the world. So it's Ladakh is its probably its eastern extreme limit. So it'll be pretty interesting to see one while looking for snow leopards. In fact, they're quite big. They can get to about 20 kilograms, which is quite big, keeping in mind the fact that snow leopards get to a maximum of 40 kilograms or 45 kilograms. So it's almost half the size of a snow leopard. So it's a very, very interesting cat to see. Eurasian lynx. Of course, no trip is complete if we just talk about the furry animals. We also need to talk about the feathers. And we have a wide range on the snow leopard tour, from golden eagles to bearded vultures to rose finches to various kinds of Himalayan partridges and pheasants, different kinds of crows and magpies, and of course, lots of robins and accenters, which are found in these mountains in the winter months. It's still quite incredible how they survive in these very, very intense cold conditions while we are all snugly inside a heated room. I can imagine a snow leopard surviving because of its thick fur, or an ibex, But these tiny birds, how they manage the elements and still are like up and about early in the morning to feed, it is quite incredible. In fact, their survival story is as interesting, if not more interesting, than the snow leopards of the region. And of course, we do see snow leopards. That is the first snow leopard most of you will see on the trip, because the locals make it in their houses using yak and sheep wool. And these are the only things we sell up at the lodge, because we think it's a great way to support the community apart from the direct income from tourism. So they make really, really interesting dolls. You can request for a male snow leopard or a female snow leopard, and they'll make you an accurate one. And so these are very popular. So this is the first snow leopard that you see, but hopefully not the last. We have been seeing cubs in good numbers in Ladakh, which is always a positive sign. Last year we had a mother with two cubs and another mother with one cub around our lodge last year, and we believe they're going to be around this season as well. Whereas we did see a mating pair of snow leopards last year, and there is a very high possibility that we may have a new set of cubs this uh, winter when we start our tours in November. Still, despite everything that I've told you about snow leopards, and the great chances of seeing them and the fantastic spotters and everything, you have to remember that you are still looking for one of the rarest and the most well adapted, hard to find big cats in the world when you are coming on the snow leopard tour. And this photo very clearly shows that there are two snow leopards here, both of which right in the middle of the frame, but very, very hard to see. Imagine this is a zoomed in photo. If you're staring at a mountainside, it's so hard to miss them. Let me take it one step further. There are three snow leopards in this photograph. uh, I'll give you all a minute. I'm sorry about the ones who are using their phones. It may not be, the image may not be big enough to see this or find the cats, but for those you who are watching it on this webinar on larger screen, you might be able to see it. Okay, there you go. You can see the mating pair of snow leopards on the right, and another lone snow leopard watching them on the left, probably waiting for his turn. So this is how well camouflaged these cats can be in the mountains. But not all uh, sightings are difficult. Some of the sightings are much closer. Some of them are really close. Some of them are very interesting from a natural history perspective. But imagine this is the landscape. This is what you're staring at, and you are looking for snow leopards, which will be like looking for a needle in a haystack, essentially. But we do it with the help of our spotters and our very good optics scopes, which we have in the mountains, which we use. That's how we locate them. And once we locate them, we can sometimes get closer to them. Sometimes they're on a hill, which makes it easier for us to approach. Sometimes they are just close. Sometimes, if they're walking on the top of the mountain, you just watch and appreciate them. You can't do much about getting close because you're trying to catch up with the snow leopard in the mountains. That's not going to happen. These are some of the uh, sightings we had last year where the spotters found these cats in different places. This one was a large male. You can still see the blood stains on his chest. He had tried to attack a yak. He had failed, but he was still waiting around to see if he got another chance to attack the yak. But we saw the snow leopard, and the villagers came in and took the yak away. But we did get to see the snow leopard. I'm glad the yak was saved because it is someone's property. But and I hope the snow leopard made a kill later. But we did have a very, very good viewing. And sometimes you get them like this, right by the side of the road, or sometimes walking along the on a small trail next to us. We have had such really, really fantastic encounters. Some of our groups have also seen hunts where the snow leopards have brought down wild sheep in front of our groups, and sometimes we get them really close to appreciate the various muscles, the various colors, the subtle tones in the fur of a snow leopard. It is a beautiful cat, isn't it? I've seen over 50 of them, but I keep going back for more. And this is a snow leopard on a kill, on an ibex kill. It is resting on the neck of the dead ibex, keeping an eye on us while we were watching the snow leopard. You can see how the tail and everything is like wrapped around in that area. This snow leopard stayed on the kill for almost 8 days, giving us all fantastic views on our photo trip last year. But having said all this, there was also another issue of uh, this whole process is that everyone had decided to conserve snow leopards. Everyone was kind of benefiting from the economics of snow leopard tourism. Everyone was involved. There was cooks, there was porters, there were spotters, there were chefs, there were housekeeping people, there were drivers, there were people in lay, there were people who were supplying milk to the lodges, people who were supplying vegetables, people who were supplying meat. Everyone benefited. But what also happened was snow leopards that were killing livestock were not really, it was not a concern anymore for the locals, because the locals realized that the benefits of snow leopard tourism were important. So what was kind of happening, which at least from the eyes of the Snow Leopard Conservancy, was that for this program to be a complete success, the livestock killing had to be reduced, because people's lifestyles were changing because of snow leopard conservation. The local lifestyles were changing. People were not as fussed. Some of them, not all of them, I can't generalize here, but some of them were not as fussed about losing the livestock anymore, which was in past years their major source of income to snow leopards, because they know that snow leopards were uh, bringing a greater good to the landscape. So what happened was the Snow Leopard Conservancy, along with a couple of other organizations, got together and provided the villagers with mesh and some wood. This simple initiative of covering the sheep and yak cattle corrals from the top, which is usually how the snow leopard gets in, reduced the instances of conflict by almost 95%, if you can imagine that. Because snow leopards rarely go after the livestock in the mountains because there's a shepherd around. They usually come into the villages at night when they're old, especially the old ones or the ones which are injured, who can't hunt anymore. They come in, and that's where the damage happens. So, this simple initiative to cover the livestock kraals, it might seem like a very simple thing. Why didn't people think of this earlier? It may sound like that, but imagine you're in the middle of nowhere in the high Himalayas, in the mountains, people figuring things out, the locals figuring things out amongst themselves, an organization fighting to find solutions. Things happen at a different pace as compared to New York City. And this initiative has been fantastic. And wherever it has been installed, the difference has been incredible. 95% reduction in livestock loss of life, and the snow leopards went back to finding wild prey, like this cat we saw right at the edge of the village amongst livestock. But this cat went and killed a female ibex. And this village, all the sheep pens were covered with mesh on top. So this is a very interesting sign. So we've seen more and more of wild kills and less of livestock kills in recent years, which is a positive sign. And I feel that kind of completes the process of community conservation of these big cats, and a very solid ecotourism program focused on the survival of big cats and a complete benefit to the local community. So that's us. We've, after a very good trip, that's me sitting in the bottom, and we look forward to seeing you all in Ladakh. And this is, remember, this is the first part of a three-part webinar series that I'll be doing over the course of the next 3 months, talking about various aspects of snow leopards, snow leopard conservation, the trip, the NATAB trip that looks for snow leopards as such, and even talking about things like photographing these cats and what as the simple tips and tricks one can remember while coming into the landscape. I'm going to leave you all with this favorite image of mine of a snow leopard walking through an old monastery. It is one of the most special things I've seen in my life. Walking at the edge of the village with about 50 villagers watching the cat. This cat just came down through the monastery, unperturbed by our presence, and walked through the village and went down the other side. So incredible things are happening in Ladakh, and I hope to see you all there soon to give you a realistic, ground up picture of what it takes to live with big cats and how seeing wild snow leopards became a reality thanks to the community. Thank you so much.
All right, Surya, thank you so much. Now, before we start with the question and answer session, I'd like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your GoToWebinar control panel. And if you're interested in traveling with NatHab to see the snow leopards, you can visit our website at nathab.com for trip details or call us at 800-543-8917 to speak with an adventure specialist. All right, so let's dive into these questions right now. All right, so now, the roads are a great thing for tourism, but has it exposed the cats to any other dangers such as poaching and things like of that nature?
Oh, no, not at all. So remember, the roads haven't been put in for the sake of tourism. Roads have been put in for the sake of, let's say, there are a cluster of 10 houses about 20 miles into the mountains who for every health crisis, most of the times they just give up. They don't even bother coming into the town if it's a serious illness. Now they have access to fresh supplies, access to medical aid, access to insurance, access to good education, all of that. Because so the purpose of roads was not for tourism. The roads have been an interesting factor for us to explore other valleys. And remember, the roads only connect to the villages. Snow leopards are there all around in the mountains. So the villages just provide us one access, one artery into the mountains uh, to understand the snow leopards of that area better. It doesn't mean that it's not like the Masai Mara where the roads crisscross everywhere. There will be one road and then there'll be about 10 folds of mountains and the next road is there. So it doesn't really affect. But yes, just to give a little bit more relevance to that answer, yes, roads are always bad. If you talk puritanianly from the wildlife point of view, any road, whether it's a road in the Serengeti, a road in the Masai Mara, a road through Yellowstone, or a road in Ladakh, everything is a problem because the road ultimately benefits only people, not wildlife. But if the people who live amongst this wildlife, like the Ladakhis in the mountains, are happy and content, possibly their attitudes towards the wildlife and better education reaching them, all of that would play a big role in conserving big cats and the wildlife of the mountains. Remember, we are not living in an ideal world. We are living in a world where compromise is the norm. And keeping that in mind, I think this is okay.
Great, thank you for that thoughtful answer. So,
Hmm.
do snow leopards and Eurasian lynx compete for food? Can they occupy the same territory?
Yes, yes, they are found together. Let's say we can put it like they're like the lions and leopards in Africa. They are together, but they avoid each other as much as possible. Wolves are also there. Remember, it's not just snow leopards and lynx. Wolves are also a major player in this. A pack of wolves, even a snow leopard will move away from. The lynx is similar. The lynx survives by hiding amongst dense bushes and moving out very rarely. It uses the element of surprise and by hiding amongst bushes, whereas snow leopards walk the high mountain ridges. So yes, they do cross paths. How often I do not know, but it will be impossible for us to imagine that they don't cross paths. But a lynx meeting a snow leopard, I don't think either one is a threat to the other. But either of them getting caught amongst a pack of wolves, it may not end well. That's probably what I would say for that.
Understood. Thank you. So now that the livestock are being protected, will there be a shortage of prey for the cats?
No, not at all. There is plenty of prey. It is very simple. When you have to catch a live chicken, whereas there is a nice, well-cooked piece of chicken breast in front of you, you'll go for that. It's as simple because the livestock are easier, they're weaker, they're easier to catch. It doesn't take much effort, especially for an old and weak and dying or injured snow leopard. It is an easy pickings. So it is never a question of dearth of prey. It is only a question of ease. And if you remove that temptation from the equation, the natural sequence of events will continue where the snow leopards go back to trying to hunt wild prey, and the old and weak and injured ones will perish, which is again the natural way of things. It shouldn't mean that an old snow leopard should come into a village and kill livestock. That doesn't bode well for both people and for snow leopards.
Thank you. So now looking at some of the pictures, it looks like there isn't a lot of trees and bushes. Um, do we know why the area is very desert-like? Is it just the atmosphere, the elevation?
Yeah, it is. It is a mixture of things. It is the elevation, of course. We are talking about a landscape which is 4,000 meters and above. I think it's higher than some of the highest peak in the North America, where you land in Leh. So it is way above the tree line, number one. And also, like I told you, the Himalayas is a great barrier for the monsoon, for the water-bearing clouds from the oceans. So very few of them cross over north of that. So the region north of the Himalayas, which is Ladakh and Tibet, are all dry areas because the clouds can't get past this high mountain barrier. So those are the two reasons why you have a cold desert, as I called it, a cold desert in Ladakh, with very little to almost no vegetation in the winters. But in the summers, you do have a profusion of wildflowers and grasses and sedges, some trees, some bushes, but they all are like active for like a 4 month period, after which they remain dormant, while some of them just die out and the new germination happens in the month of April and May.
So what are the different ways that we can tell a male from a female snow leopard,
Well, it's not
besides the
easy.
obvious?
Thank you for clarifying that. It's not easy. Fundamentally, it's size. I would say fundamentally, it's size. The males are stockier, they have a thicker neck, and that's pretty much it. It's not obvious at all. And very often we can tell females only by the fact that they have cubs, especially if you're looking at them from like let's say 200, 300 meters away. I wouldn't call it unless I'm absolutely sure. But yes, in the area where we work, we know the snow leopards fairly well. We know the snow leopards, which family is where, which male is where. So when we see them, we can be 90% sure which snow leopard we're looking at, whether it's a male, a young male, a female, or this female with cubs, things like that. It's like any place. You get familiar with the cat slowly. But unlike what you experience on tiger safari in India or on safari in Africa, you don't get a close enough view always to be able to tell, oh, that is this cheetah. She is so many years old and she has three cubs, and last year her sister was there and her brother was here. We can't say all that, but we can be fairly confident about the cat we are looking at.
So has climate change affected the area any?
Yeah, of course. Climate change has affected every area in the world. Why not Ladakh? Especially an area which is so finely balanced between the various seasons, between its hydrology, between the snowfall, between the precipices, between the snow clouds, the altitude, everything. So yes, Ladakh is definitely affected by climate change. We honestly don't know how, but we are seeing changes. We are seeing changes in the pattern. When I say we don't know how, what I mean is we don't know how it's going to affect the place in the long run because studies are being done now. But the amount of snowfall over the years has come down. There is highly erratic snowfall in the summer months, lot more rain in the summer, which is leading to flash floods, and sometimes you're having entire winters without a drop of snow. So these are all differences which I have picked up by having conversations with our spotters and trackers, the locals. They're saying yes, there is a huge amount of change. They are seeing change a lot. In fact, one interesting thing I've noticed in Ladakh, not related to snow leopards, is that brown bears in western Ladakh aren't hibernating through winter anymore. So when the snowfall is less, they just come out, look for food. They're active through the winter sometimes, and then they go back to hibernation, come out again whenever when they're hungry. Because fundamentally, hibernation happens because there is a lack of food in the winter. But these brown bears are now being able to find food around the villages even in the winter, and the snow doesn't cover up the landscape anymore in some parts, in some years, not every year. So some of these bears are roaming around even in peak winter when they're usually hibernating under, let's say, 8 to 10 feet of snow. So that is one obvious thing that I've noticed in the recent years.
Is there a chance of seeing Paula's cat when we're out there?
Well, not. There is a very good chance of seeing Palace's cats in Ladakh. In fact, I was just there with a couple of other NATAB leaders, and we saw four Palace's cats in Ladakh. But unfortunately, the this tour doesn't go to that place at the moment. This tour is focused more on snow leopards, because when you go towards the Palace's cats, which require high altitude flatland marshes, those are not very good places for snow leopards. So if someone wants to see Palace's cats, they can obviously extend their stay in Ladakh and go look for Palace's cats. It's very easy to see them there, but it doesn't happen. They are there. There are camera traps, photographs of Palace's cat around the area where we look for snow leopards, but I don't know of any direct sighting in that area.
Is it more rare to see the Himalayan wolf than the snow leopard?
Not really. It's similar. It's similar. So wolves, the challenge is they move a lot. They are a lot less predictable. They move through huge landscapes. So seeing one is very special, similar to snow leopard. So I don't think one is rarer or the other. Sometimes on tours we see snow leopards on all 7 days and no wolves, and sometimes we see wolves and then some snow leopards. So it's a mix of everything. So there is really no data that I have that says that this is harder or that is easier. I would say the lynx is harder, but wolves and snow leopards we have a genuine chance of seeing on tours.
Do we know what the global population of snow leopards is sitting at now? Is it increasing or decreasing? And can we only find snow leopards uh, in the mountains there?
Okay, so this answer may sound funny to all of you, but this is the official data. The global estimate of snow leopards is 3,000 to 8,000. Imagine the range, 3,000 to 8,000. So the truth of the matter is, like I told you at the start of the talk, only 2% of the snow leopard area has been studied, and most of the numbers we have are by extrapolating the numbers from the studies done on the 2% area. So we don't really have accurate numbers. We don't know if the numbers are increasing. We don't know if the numbers are decreasing. We have no data of any solid significance at the moment for snow leopards. In India, they say we have around 600 snow leopards. Earlier, they said 200 to 600 in Ladakh. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. The one thing I know is around where we go to look for snow leopards, we have around 15 cats in that area, and that is something I can confidently say. But beyond that, I can just refer you to the numbers because studies haven't been done. Like, for example, we don't know how many snow leopards there are in Afghanistan, which is one of the largest snow leopard territories in the world. We don't know how many snow leopards there are in China and Tibet. So it's not easy to really study and come up with an accurate figure. But this is the number, 3,000 to 8,000, to answer the question.
Thank you, Surya. Unfortunately, that will be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for some closing comments.
Well, looking for snow leopards in India, in Ladakh, may not be something on someone's wildlife wish list on the number one thing, but it is, according to me, one of the most unique wildlife experiences in the world. and it is getting more and more comfortable year after year, thanks to NatHab and the people from the community there. And your presence there makes a huge difference to the conservation. Actually, I'm not just trying to greenwash something. It actually makes a difference, your presence there. So I would encourage those of you who are even remotely interested to give this a shot. It is a great trip. It is a fantastic experience, and it's a beautiful cat to see. Thank you.
Surya, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. If you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.